More than 200,000 people have signed various petitions trying to get some justice for Steven Avery, who was the subject of a very popular Netflix documentary called Making a Murderer. Now, Steven Avery was convicted for a rape that he did not commit, and he served 18 years in prison as a result of that. And then when he got out and attempted to sue the local police department that got him prosecuted in the first place, well, it seems as though they framed him for a murder that he didn't commit, and as a result, he's serving the rest of his life behind bars. Now, if you watch the documentary, you'll see all of the evidence that was presented in his favor, but the jury didn't really take that into account. Now, people are trying to get some justice for him by signing these petitions, but the petitions don't really matter because he wasn't filed on federal charges, so the president can't pardon him. However, as of early Monday, the series has compelled nearly 200,000 people to sign Change.org and White House petitions calling for his pardon, an impossibility under the Constitution, which allows presidential pardons only for federal criminal convictions. Now, there was one person who commented on these petitions, and I think that he hit the nail on the head. He says, after watching Making a Murderer, I'm outraged with the injustices which I have been allowed to compound and left unchecked, which have been allowed to compound and left unchecked in the case of Steven Avery. Avery's unconstitutional mistreatment at the hands of corrupt local law enforcement is completely unacceptable and is an abomination of due process. There are other comments as well. And look, it's kind of hard to go over all the evidence that was presented in that documentary. It's a docu-series, so it's 10 episodes. Each one is longer than an hour. But you watch it and you see the insane injustice that Steven Avery and his family had to endure. And I like that this is riling people up and it's making people realize how unjust our so-called justice system is. But this is not an isolated incident. This is stuff that happens all the time. The Innocence Project continuously exonerates people who have been convicted for crimes that they haven't committed, including those who are serving, deaths, like they were sentenced to the death penalty. So I don't know if people are realizing how ridiculous the death penalty is, considering all the flaws in our system, but this should be one example of that.
Even me, I look at this and I think, and I didn't watch the series. I'm looking forward to watching it and being outraged later. But as I look at it, I instinctively go, yeah, but what about the prosecution side? Were they fair enough to the prosecution? Are we sure about this? Because it's a documentary from one point of view. Now, of course, they say they tried desperately to talk to the prosecution. They're perfectly aware of the prosecution's side and took that into account. But I don't know why I'm trying to be so afraid of the prosecution here. When in reality, are there an enormous number of cases in the country that you could make movie after movie, documentary after documentary about? Of course, as Anna pointed out, and this is the reason I switched my view on the death penalty. Well, after the Innocence Project took all those guys off of death row, it's like, well, obviously we're killing the wrong guys. Yep. So I might be a barbarian enough to want to kill the right guys, but not barbarian enough to want to kill the wrong guys. So, I don't think we should be that surprised that, yes, that there's a case of injustice like this. And I'm kind of glad it's doing so well. Now this is the second or third show, podcast and documentary that have done so well in this regard, because maybe we'll pay more attention to the grave injustices that do happen in this country over and over again.
The documentary series highlights so many different issues with our justice system, right? Not only, the corruption with police officials and prosecutors and judges, but also the fact that there is a two-tier justice system. Steven Avery was able to hire two incredible lawyers, right? And usually that will get you what you need in order to, not get convicted of a crime you didn't commit. But the corruption was so deep that even the best lawyers were unable to get him the justice that he deserved. Now, he got about $400,000 from a settlement for the wrongful conviction, right? He had to spend all of that on the two really good attorneys. And he still couldn't get what he needed. I mean, what chance does anyone have if you don't have that kind of money to hire the best representation?
Well, in his first case where he was wrongfully convicted, he didn't have that kind of money. He was from poor background, so they railroaded him fairly easily. He only had the money after he got the settlement for the first wrongful conviction to fight what now people perceive to be the second wrongful conviction.
And he had to settle for $400,000. Think about it. He spent 18 years of his life behind bars for a crime he didn't commit. He had to settle for $400,000 because at that point, they had already charged him with the murder thing. So he was like, I don't know what to do. I guess I have to settle for whatever they'll give me, and I can use that for my defense. But unfortunately, it didn't work.
And that might be one of the reasons why they charged him with the second murder.